question and answer session. I'm enjoying doing this. I like helping people, I guess, or sharing my knowledge. I also like rattling on a bit, you know. So yeah. Last weekend I just ran with a good friend of mine a workshop, dating and sexuality, like a weekend workshop about sexuality, and that was an intense process. It's such a kind of core subject where all our woundedness seems to accumulate around, who we are as sexual beings, and how we deal with intimacy, how we deal with sex. And I'm just very appreciative to all the participants who came. It was about 23, 24 people, and just how much they were willing to go for it and to look at this area of our lives. So yeah, I found that a very nourishing experience myself. And I'm hoping to run more sexuality stuff. I'm planning a 7-day sexuality intensive next year with some friends, and that's going to be exciting. And I'm going to look around to see if I can get some more work like this going. There's not so much of it in the UK right now, and there's a lot of tantra and other work, but the work we're doing, I do with my friend Sanjula, is really looking at all the shit, basically, that men and women have between them, and not just trying to work it out with your mind, but going into the depth of all those feelings, and then we guide you out into a place of more mutual acceptance and understanding, and finding your own personal truth about sexuality, rather than it's such a kind of volatile area these days, with everyone willing to throw all sorts of judgments all over the place about sexuality and who we are as sexual beings. It seems to be a major thing in our culture. We've had this thing, toxic masculinity, for a few years. Guys who are just arrogant and dumping opinions and shit everywhere. And now I've heard about toxic femininity, which is quite a good counterbalance, referring to women who think they've got a right to just hurl accusations and judgments at men, as though every man is a symbol of a sort of evil patriarchy or something. So I'm happy that these kind of descriptive terms are coming into our language and our culture now, because they help us to understand our own opinions, I think. Anyway, I'm just rattling on a little bit about sexuality, and having just run a workshop on the subject and getting interested to do more. Of course, put any comments or questions you wanna stick in, and I'll do my best to give my opinion, to give a useful answer. I get a lot of questions by email, by Facebook Messenger. Facebook Messenger is good because I don't like to type too much stuff out, because one, it's not so, I end up doing a lot of computer work. And secondarily, Tryon Dragos. Hello, Devaraj. Greetings from Romania. Hi, Tryon. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correct. Good to hear from you. I'm not sure if you're a guy or a girl. I'm kind of assuming it sounds more like a guy's name, but I don't think I've ever been to Romania, so I don't really know. But if you've got a question, feel free to ask. What was I saying? Yeah, general question. I get a lot of questions. Facebook Messenger is good. WhatsApp is good because I can just leave a little voice reply, and I don't like to write too much stuff down. Like it's kind of long, complicated to articulate my thoughts. Is a bit complex sometimes. I'm more of a verbal person, really. I find it gives more connection, and I do write. I wrote a fucking novel last year, I don't really. I prefer verbal communication. So, asking me questions like that I can answer verbally really suits me. So these Q&As are good, and also I'm getting a lot of questions now from people doing the exercises and the work, which is great. But it's easier for me to answer by in these sessions, because then also it's good to ask questions if you're brave and don't mind putting it out on YouTube, because other people will probably have the same issues going on. That's absolutely what I find. So these question answer sessions can it can be beneficial for other people if you have the courage to ask your question you know, and so it's a valid thing to do. Anyway, I'm sitting here. I haven't done one on a Monday evening before, so I'm intrigued to see if we get any questions. Thankfully, the Wi-Fi seems to be better this week. Last week, I don't know what happened to last week's episode because it kind of died somewhere. Okay. Anyway, let me get to the question from Tryon. I'm 29 years old, a guy from Central Europe, a small country. I follow your videos on YouTube. Thank you. Cool, Tryon. That's cool to hear from you, man. And I hope you're doing good with it. I'm enjoying kind of learning and exploring how to, engage people who want to get therapy, who want anyway, if they may not want to do therapy, but they want to create positive change in their life by working with the body like this. And it's happy for me to look, what can we do online? Because I came from a background where, you always went to groups, basically. You always went to groups, and then you kind of found like-minded people to share a bit what was going on with and to practice with. And now is a lot more, everything's online. And a lot more people can hear about it, but how do we do it? Okay, I've done a master in bioenergetics and several workshops. I also worked with 2 different therapists. I would like to ask you if you have a more specific exercise for the wound in the chest, as I'm an oral character. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're referring to like Reichian characterology, which, I did a course in it once about 10, 12 years ago. I think I'm also quite oral. And, it's kind of out of favour these days to pigeonhole people this way. And I never really studied Reichian characterology. So it would be useful for me to give, you say wound in the chest, if you mean basically heart wounds, heart-centered wounds, if you're talking about that, tend to be wounds of abandonment to a degree. Gut-centered wounds tend to be wounds of invasion, Abandonment is when you want something and it's not there, like mama, not there. And invasion wounds are more when someone's coming too close into you and it's not what you want. So heart-centered wounds tend to be like that. And opening the heart, I find the most powerful way to do this is working essentially with this region here, on your back, upper back, between the shoulder blades, because curiously enough, that is where the heart closes from. If you have like a powerful, tragic experience or a real feeling of sadness, a loss, often it seems to be centered here in the center of your chest, like something's bursting open, like a dam is bursting open. And so we assume the heart opens from here, which I guess it does. But in real practical terms, this region right behind it is where the heart closes from. And how we keep these muscles here tight and closed is by doing a lot. By thinking and doing a lot from mind down through the arms, we create a lot of tension here. And it keeps our emotions very much under control. But then, of course, if at some point we want to open our heart and go deeper and feel more, then you've got to learn how to do it. So if you look at my bioenergetic workouts for the shoulder workout, I don't know if it's 1, 2, 3, something like that. That's excellent to start to open up this area. And then what naturally happens is more deeper feelings come through inside a person. You can access a deeper kind of state of inner consciousness, and, you can feel the wounds more, I also recommend a lot, when you want to open your heart or with upper body tension, to work in the gut, to work in the belly, because the belly is the central axis, really, the central point of the entire body of our genetic history. And when that belly we've decamped from the belly, most people, we're 90% up in the mind. And when you reoccupy the belly, there's some belly exercises I put online recently, then your upper body starts to relax, and this tendency to keep the heart under control from the mind is diminished. So that's I hope that's useful for you. Cool. Okay, Domingo, thanks. Yes. Sorry, yeah, I'm getting confused between the people. Yeah, Domingo. Okay, cool. I hope that helped. Half Z, yo. Okay, yo, man. It's a good word, hey? It's kind of come from I guess, Black American English, slowly into English culture, but I don't think we say it very much. I don't know. I'm trying to think if any of my black friends ever say yo. I don't think so. Anyway, cool. Yeah, like I noticed, like in America, the guys I kind of follow on YouTube all say, hey guys, what's up? You know, maybe I should start that. Hey David, Sasha. Hey Sasha. I express sadness, but it never seems to end. Been a long time like this. Yeah. I mean, you know, the only thing I can say from a body-based perspective is you just have to keep going deeper into it. You know, deeper into it and opening the body more. You know, when we're in you know, for example, an emotional crisis, you've got to really understand the two currents of the mind. The upper mind, the newly evolved part of the mind, wants everything to be good and wants us to look cool and good and together. Prefrontal cortex, and the limbic mind, the lower mind, wants to go in deeper into the dark feelings. So, you know, from my background, all I can say to you is to try and go deeper into the feelings and open the body more, and they will clear. You know, very often deep wounds, I work a lot with people with very deep wounds from childhood, abuse wounds, abandonment wounds, sometimes a combination of both. And I came from that background as well, and it's normal at some point you really are in very, very deep emotional wounding. And what's useful at that point is to start to separate the story of the wound, which usually came along later. You know, we don't have the cognitive abilities, age 2 or 3, to process that stuff, from the feeling in the body. And start to focus on accepting the feeling in the body and trying to let go of the story which is going around. You know, I remember doing a group 15 years ago when I started high intense therapy, and I had a story in my mind like, I want to die. You know, just for like 2 hours, it was like a record playing. I just want to die. And somewhere I had the intuitive insight to keep feeling what was happening inside my body, and to allow the story to be there, but not to just keep buying it completely, but put my energy more, my attention more on the feeling in the body. And this is a good way to deal with crisis, especially when you don't have support around you. You know, to keep trying to go into it. If you can get support, like heartful people you can share with, that's useful. So I hope that's useful to you. And I think you shared with me a little bit earlier about meditation stuff, and that's also great. But the underlying core principle is you have to keep going into the wound, and you have to keep feeling it. That's what I'll say from my background. So recently I've started re-educating the child because he feels wronged by mother. Yeah, it's good. It's good to work with the mind as well, and to try not to go back into the same patterns of mental behaviour. Absolutely great, man. It's great what you're doing, and you know, just to remember that yes, the traumatic impact is still held in the body, and when that comes out, the tendency of this lower part of the mind, the limbic brain, to keep pulling you back there will be reduced. There'll always be mental patterns. They don't really go away, but the energy behind them reduces, and you can use your own awareness to go in a different direction. I hope that's useful, man, and I hope you're talking about coming on Sunday to the workshop. I hope you can make it. Johnny Ramon Bell. Devaraj, during the bow and arch, a strange sensation comes into my calves. They feel locked in place. I get pins and needles in the calves. Yeah, I'd say certainly the pins and needles. That's usually, you know, quite a strong indicator that something is trying to shift. And you know, without seeing you personally, I think it's good not always to. You can push through if you feel like that's a good idea with the pins and needles, or you can slacken off a bit but keep going with it, because the pins and needles generally, you know, is a sign that something's really trying to move. That there's something big near the surface and it's really trying to come out, and generally a bit of, you know, gradual, sustained effort with it will help, and something will move. Something will move. Thanks. Indeed, at the level of this Domingo, yeah, hi Domingo again, I have a proper basin there which I'm working on to open it up. I see this closed heart also from the body. Many times the reflux in the chest burns many times. Yeah, the reflux is good. That kind of, you know, vomit, gag reflex, I assume you're talking about, or drinking something and throwing it up. It can be useful to clear the throat, certainly. It's a great cure for a certain type of insomnia also. Just be careful you don't get in too much addictive pattern with it. Sometimes people get into really addictive patterns with vomiting and throwing up, and you don't want to be doing that. I recommend for these heart wounds really opening this area behind here. Give that a try and see if that helps. And try with the gut as well, with the belly. I've done a kind of belly workout. I think I put it online finally last week. Give that a try. Sasha, thanks, man. Thank you too, man. Domingo. Okay. Most of the time after the practice, I feel much more open, but it keeps closing every day and more than ever. All the muscles of my chest hurt lately as I concentrate working on that part with the stool, etc. I mean, make sure you're not overdoing it, hey? Sometimes, for example, I get guys who had a real sergeant major dad, and by guys I mean also women, who had a dad who really, stuck it on them to get appreciation. They had to really work hard. And then, when we become teenagers, we can internalize that as a kind of like the Freudian super ego, who just basically believes that you have to really go for it, or you're not gonna be okay. Basically, you're not going to get appreciation. You're not going to be okay. So be a little bit careful if you're working a lot with the chest and with the same practice all the time, that it hasn't just got into a repetitive behavior and, you're overdoing that area physically. I recommend you try to work at the gut level as well, because when the gut becomes more active and you feel more inside your belly down here, the upper body just starts to relax, man. Just starts to relax. It just starts to say, hey, I'm trying all these things, but I don't need to do them, I was just running a workshop on sexuality. Sexuality doesn't need to be run from the mind. We try to run it from the mind. It's run from the gut, from the pelvis, basically. That's the natural areas where we run sexuality from. You see dynamic, vital people who are sexually really vital, they're running stuff from down there. With the mind, it drives itself crazy trying to run sexuality and trying to look good for the girls or the guys or whatever it is. So, I recommend try working something a little bit different. Work on a different area of the body. And if you are doing all that, I apologise. I obviously don't know you directly. I just try and give the best advice I can from what you say. Johnny Ramon Bell. Thanks, Devaraj. No worries, man. No worries. Connection's going down a little bit. I used to be an electrician, I did that for about 10 years in central London, and I've bought some cable to try and improve the fucking Wi-Fi here. So hopefully I can do that, and then my intention is to start doing some live morning workouts, So, because I run regular classes here at Senna in the mornings, but sometimes I feel a little bit, do people really all want to be on bioenergetics on YouTube, showing what they're going through, and it's quite hard to set it up, and here it will be easier. So I'm hoping to start doing some live stuff on YouTube soon. And by the way, if you want to keep up with these streams, live streams, I've got a page on my website where I'm going to just write them up, so I'll leave a link to that so you can check out when the next live stream is, and if there's going to be like a live workout, like 1 hour or half-hour sessions in the morning. I'm just trying different stuff because I would love to be able to create more of an online community where people can really get positive development without having to pay a big fortune to go to workshops, because people come to me from all diverse places, and chances are there aren't so many bioenergetics workshops going on where they live, and body-based therapy is coming, but it's kind of new, and the people that are good at it usually don't have PhDs, we I don't know, I can't be asked with that stuff, I mean, it's like, so I consider myself a good therapist and I get a lot of good feedback, but I don't have many letters after my name, and so, I have some qualifications, but I don't have, I didn't have to write like long, what do they call them, dissertations and stuff like that. And, if you're working with the body, quite possibly you're more into the body, you probably go down the gym, or, you're doing bioenergetics or whatever. You're not really into these complex, theoretical models so much. So it's a little bit crazy, the situation with therapy, because you have to get all these qualifications to be rated. And probably the kind of guys that do that aren't so much in the body, not necessarily, but so much in there. So they don't have the experience. You need to log up a lot of group room experience and hours on your own. I was lucky, I did a lot of training with a very good institution, the University in Holland. and spent a lot of money and really went for it, for a number of years to get my own shit together, to be socially functional as a human being. And so I was lucky with that. I was lucky with that, and so now I feel confident. I logged up, 1,000 hours or whatever in the group room. I mean, I never recorded them, but it must have been a lot, working, assisting workshops, doing workshops, and then starting to lead workshops. So, what am I trying to say here? It's kind of it's tricky, to find good therapists out there who are not charging a fortune and who are good, and you can't really rely on, you look for other fields. You want to find someone qualified and stuff like that, but there aren't really many qualifications in this stuff that are meaningful anyway. Okay, yeah, cool, good to hear from you guys. I work on different parts as well. One more question: in all these years, have you seen a proper change physically in your body? I guess there's been a bit of physical change in my body. It's more stuff like certain compulsions dissipate, a lot of negative behavior inside of me and negative thinking dissipates, and a lot of a charge in my system has gone. I think I kind of, people say I look young, and then again I did look quite young when I was in my teens, a little bit, not the youngest looking in class, but kind of young, and I guess I'm a young looking 57-year-old, my hair's kind of going and stuff, but it's more like an energetic vitality. I guess my body's probably a bit more flexible than other 57-year-olds. But I still got stuff in my back, I'm still working on stuff. The main changes are psychological with bioenergetics. The main changes are psychological. A certain inner freedom, less of a need to control everything all the time. And also a sense of, you start to come more inward inside of yourself. There's like a thing people call presence or inner being, and you start to get in touch with that, particularly when you work in the gut, in the belly a lot, because the belly points are underneath the thinking mind. And so that gives you the option of meditation, and not really just formal kind of sitting there doing the whole Buddhist thing, but more like a sense of relaxation with what's going on, and a sense of, the right to take a position when you need to, without mind fucking about it all too much, just to say, hey, I don't like what you're doing when you need to. And, so most of the changes I got from bioenergetics were psychological, and probably there's some level of physical change as well, And I hope, if you could look at my muscle system, it would look more relaxed than it did 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Hope that answers the question. Cool, I'm up to date with the questions, I think. Yeah. So feel free to ask a question if you've got anything kind of burning on your mind, or, I salute people that ask questions, because, I hear from other people, they're very happy other people ask questions, because the answer helps them as well. Habardar. I'm in school for neuromuscular therapy. I'm close to being finished with school. I'm grateful for the insights you share. Thank you. I hope it's useful. It's great that it sounds like you're getting a proper qualification, and the next step, I think, for a lot of the reality of the next step is, I'm never going to go and get a PhD in clinical psychology. Not very likely. I can't see myself doing that stuff. The next step is for people who've got good qualifications to get into stuff like bioenergetics, and to start to write up, trials, or run basic clinical trials with it. I'm actually hopefully involved in one with a friend of my ex-girlfriend, actually, who's a clinical psychologist, and we're going to try and do something in Brighton, working with probably depression and anxiety, kind of low-level mental issues that a lot of people report with around the private doctors. So, I'm hopefully that gets going, and then you have some data and you can put it out to people. Dum. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Muhammad, hey man, hope you're doing good. Hi there, thank you for this live chat. Can I do the bioenergetics workout and the presence process, breath work? I don't know what the presence process is, but it sounds pretty good. But I think doing meditation with bioenergetics is excellent. Basic meditation, the most basic vipassana, which kind of the Buddha, Gautama, he gave. I think it was the first meditation that he gave upon his enlightenment 2,500 years ago, was, the type of vipassana where you just sit and you just feel your belly, and you develop presence, you develop a sense, underneath the mind, of just what is, And so I think, that stuff complements bioenergetics well if you're inclined towards it. I was kind of, my own sort of spiritual background, so to speak, was a little bit of Kabbalah and Western mystery tradition, but mostly Osho, essentially. The Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, a rather controversial Indian master from the late 20th century, the 70s and the 80s, who died in 1990, left the body in 1990. And he was the main inspiration in my life, partly because, such a huge community developed around him, so many therapists, and it was very real. It wasn't people, for the most part, hiding in some spiritual ego as a way of avoiding their own kind of wounded ego from childhood, which is what, you go to Glastonbury, you see hundreds of people doing this, and that's their trip. But what I liked about the Osho scene, it was very real. There was also a lot of work with sexuality, and I was really keen to get a bit more sexual connection going in my life when I started to do groups some 15, 20 years ago. And so it was when I came across the Osho scene, which was still quite vibrant in London in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was instant, one of those things where it was just a chunk, 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 ticking a whole load of boxes. It was also quite cheap, and they were fun people doing it, not intellectuals and stuff, and not that it's, anyway, but, so it was an instant hit for me. That was my own spiritual kind of thing. Okay, Domingo, could you explain to me how come as we grow, we generally do not fall in love as often as when we were kids? Many times I note that also sexually I'm not so open as when I was younger. Where does this energy get stuck? Well, you got to look. If you're opening your heart more, that's good. I fall in love, man. I fall in love big fucking time with people who my mind really doesn't think it's a good idea to fall in love with, but it's just going there, and I have to follow it. I'm in love with Italian woman at the moment, and it's great. So I don't experience that. Falling off of these things, but certainly a lot of people I know, it's a common thing they say, that we don't fall in love as much, and it is, it's a rigidity and a hardening. I'm absolutely 100% certain you could be 95 and fall in love just like a starstruck 14-year-old. There's no reason why not. I really don't believe there's a reason why not. You just need to keep a certain inner flexibility in your energy and your body. It's like the bioenergetics is ideal for that. It's ideal for it, so you can keep your heart open and we just fall in love. We fall in love. So I don't think there's a reason. The reason is that, we come from childhood trauma. Basically, the Westerner, pretty much everyone, has got a high level of childhood trauma, and then we learn to try and manufacture a social personality, and then we become rigid over time. And we hold all the shit in, and it keeps our mind rigid, and it keeps our body rigid, and so over time, of course, we get more rigid, and then things like love, they start to fall away. But that's not endemic to being human by any means at all. I've no doubt that it's not endemic. If you want to commit to bioenergetics, to a bit of therapy, to opening up, and it sounds like you're a guy that's already doing that, all that stuff will come back, I guarantee it. You'll soon be feeling like a love-struck teenager who's utterly confused about what the fuck's going on. Don't worry, you keep doing this work, you'll be there. Yeah, I agree, but when I was a kid, it was so much easier. Now, with rigidity, so you lose many of those feelings that used to be present in my life. Yeah. There is this tendency, life becomes, for a lot of people, more rigid, more mind-centered, but it doesn't have to be like that, You start to get the thing I'm really teaching these days, which is in some ways not strictly classical bioenergetics, not that there totally is classical bioenergetics, I guess for Lowen school, is down here in the gut, in the belly, I've developed this belly workout, and I'm looking at more belly exercises. Someone just told me one from Elliot Hulse that I'm going to be checking out. And, it's like 15 years ago I saw a movie, Total Recall, Arnold Schwarzenegger, maybe you saw it. But anyway, he's a hero guy and stuff, but the underlying thing is this planet Mars, and it's fucked up big time, the oxygen doesn't work, it's just a fucking chaotic mess, and it's all under control by some big evil corporation. And at the end of a movie, he's a kind of hero, and he puts his hand on one point, and the whole thing starts to work again, The oxygen starts flowing, everything becomes wonderful, and it's all sorted out. And You know, that is a kind of, it taps into a kind of human myth. And for me, it's basically true. The belly is the point. You know, we've decamped our belly, you know, and we've gone up into the mind. And there's a lot of therapeutic work and stuff focusing on the heart, which is very, very good. But the gut is the core. And when you have this primal point back, your awareness back in your belly, your whole upper body starts to relax. You can't get that from the heart. Not totally. You can't get it from the heart. The heart's still a part of the modern mind. The gut is underneath. And when you get that totally, your whole upper body starts to relax and it starts to function properly. Your life starts to come back online. You realize that a lot of the stuff you're doing with your mind, you don't need to do with it. You know, you don't need to do with it. You know, you become more charismatic. You have a more animal kind of chemistry with people. You feel okay with yourself, you know. And it just happens progressively as we work at the gut level. And the same with sexuality, you know. You know, you can be sexually more vital in your 50s, 60s and 70s than you were in your 20s. I've no doubt about it. So don't, from a mental level, don't buy too much of the social bullshit. You know, I could sit here and start to associate on the age of 57 and think about all the 57-year-olds I know. I dare say if I tried for 5 minutes, I could work myself into a right bit of misery about it. But I mean, fuck that, you know. There's no, you know, whatever your age, you can keep moving forwards and get more deep inside your body. This is the core. Bringing the awareness back inside the body progressively over time. And your sexual vitality will go up through the fucking roof, man, really. You know? I mean, it's crazy, you know? And, you know, so it's really, you know, the quick fixes probably don't work so much. And the stuff you do with your self-image and your mind, it's okay. But, you know, really, you can be in your 50s and 60s and go around dating women all over the place. It's fine. Of course, it's good if you're straight with people about what you're doing. And who doesn't like more sex? Yeah, well, that's it. You know, I mean, it's really, I don't push it on those grounds. You know, I running workshops now on sexuality, but I don't push bioenergetics on, you know, guys get a hard on for 2 hours. But it's also true. You know, you get more in your body. You come out of your mind. You know, if we go into sex a little bit and the real mechanics of it, a lot of the reason I find why men ejaculate quickly is they're too mind-centered. You start to have sex with someone or get sexually intimate, and often the mind kicks off in a big kind of half fantasy world, and it creates a rapid form of ejaculation as you bring your awareness progressively back down into your body. As you reoccupy your body, that tendency goes away. You're much more centered during sex. You know, you don't need to practice weird techniques. You know, you don't even need to focus on your sexual areas so much. I mean, a bit of work in the pelvis is good in the gut, but, you know, it just happens. It just happens, and you become then more satisfied with things. It's hard for me to really feel how your belly changes, how everything works inside of you. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just my experience. That's my progressive personal experience. And, you know, I haven't been doing enough belly work to call it like an exhaustive study, you know. But I'm fairly convinced it's a major thing. Some of the guys who are regularly doing my classes here at Leela and stuff are starting to talk about it as well, that they're getting quite a big shift. Certainly, it's good if you've got invasion wounds as well. I mean, abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, to work at the gut level. And that also, if it's sexual abuse, improves your sex life, you know, because a lot of people's sex lives get fucked up by the fact that they've had sexual abuse of some sort themselves. And those kind of wounds are stored around the gut. So, you know, we just wait and see. I'm not gonna make absolute statements until I'm really convinced. But for me, this gut thing is a big deal. I think we've really decamped it. I don't know how to measure it, but we've left the gut. And working a lot in the alternative scene here where I am, I see a lot of people with their mind open, their heart open, and a huge where they cannot get down into the gut level. And they become very beautiful on the surface, but over time and underneath, their life is not really functional because there's still this huge cutoff from the gut. So, you know, I'm just seeing it as a missing link a lot. Would you recommend belly and pelvic exercises every day? I think it's okay to do that. It's okay to do that if you've got the time. the thing to make sure is that you're not overdoing it and getting too addicted, you know. But I think it's good to do a basic level of I do bioenergetics every morning. You know, when I teach, if you've ever been to one of my classes, I half do it all the time as well. Helps me feel the room. I don't like to just hide behind the sound system like some teachers. And I'll always do at least half an hour in the morning, where pretty much wherever I am, even if I'm traveling, I find some way to try and do something. It's tricky when you want to make noise, but you know, in some places. But I think it's good to do it. And I think the belly, the bow and arch, pelvic exercises are great, you know. You know, I'm going to put a pelvic workout on soon with pelvic rotation, pelvic up and down, and then pelvic bumping as a sequence. And that can shift a hell of a lot of old crap from your back, and your sexual energy can change a lot by doing that work. But something to understand about bioenergetics is that you can work all around the body, you know. The tendency from our culture is to think, okay, I've got a bad shoulder, let's work on the shoulder. But that's not necessarily going to be useful. It's not necessarily going to be useful. So, you know, it's good to loosen up. If anyone, I don't mean being you, Ramon. If anyone has the attitude that, okay, I've got a lot of tension in my neck, I need to work on the neck all the time. Be a little bit more open-minded than that. But if you can do bioenergetics every day, that's fucking great. Basically, that's fucking great. Fully releasing noise is a real issue, can be very loud and frightening for self or others. Yeah, I mean, you know, when I started teaching in towns and cities a few years ago, and I was trying to find places to teach, it's a motherfucker, basically, because you can't easily find anywhere that it's okay to make a ton of noise. Hopefully this new studio in Brighton I can make a bit of noise, and there's one I've got near a main road in Brighton where I can make a load of noise. There's one I have in London, a place where I can make a fair bit of noise, but there's another studio, often with Tai Chi going on next door, and they don't mind a bit, but they don't want too much. But it's tricky. And if it's a personal thing, and you're intimating there that it's a personal thing as well, you know, it's good to find an area where you can make some noise. People do it driving, which I don't think is a little bit dodgy if you're starting to get into feelings while you're driving. Not such a good idea. But it's good to try and, you know, making noise. And if you've got the chance to work with a therapist who understands about making noise, it's very good. Something also about making noise in therapy, and I did a lot of screaming therapy stuff, is that, you know, people tend to shout from the throat, particularly when you're doing like a confrontational shouting exercise with another group participant face to face, or a meter apart is good. You know, they tend to shout from the throat because you go in a bit of a shock reaction. But the deeper release comes from the belly. You know, you want to try and activate your belly when you shout. And then you don't actually shout so kind of high-pitched loud, but you get more of a release, you know. But sound is generally good. You know, it's generally good. You also can overdo it with the sound in bioenergetics. You don't always need to. Sometimes it's for mind, exaggerating stuff a little bit needlessly. But sound is generally good. And it's important to unblock the throat. You know, if you're doing pelvic exercises on the floor and your pelvis is starting to move, I often see people locking up the throat because they don't want make any kind of sound when they're starting to feel sexual energy moving. And that's not really healthy. So it's good to try and find a space where you can make some noise and to practice or experiment a bit. What exercise is part of your morning routine? At the moment, well, I'm doing this belly thing pretty much obsessively. People in the centre are probably bored, fucking rigid of it. But hopefully it's doing them good. But I'm doing at least a half an hour of the belly thing. And particularly, you know, warming up the belly and getting in there. And then this quite fast is starting to move a lot. I'm also combining that with foot opening. There's like 6 different foot opening exercises. I think I've got 4 on my YouTube channel. I'll probably do a whole thing. When the live streams, I can do live stream workouts. I'll do that. That's good because when you open the belly, you're opening up your emotionality more, and particularly certain intensity of feelings. And it's useful if you've got your legs more open, so the energy can stream down the legs. Even if you don't feel it, it helps to keep you more centered and grounded when you're opening the guts. So I'm doing that. Sometimes I'm combining that with the chair position, which is there on the website somewhere. It's a very intense position you can do for a minute or 2 minutes at a time, have a little break and try that when you sit in a chair pose, but not on a chair with your back to a wall, but your knees at a right angle. I'm doing that a lot at the moment. I always do a bit of bow and arch. Gut wake up followed by bow and arch is great. Gut wake up followed by the feet openers is great. gut wake up followed by chest openers is great. I'm slowly developing sequences of exercises which I hope to kind of get into some kind of publishable format, you know, in the next year, well, as I develop my own concept, and then, you know, that stuff will be available for people to just learn from directly. Okay, so another question. Easy money 21. I'm getting a dog because I can't find a sane girl to have a real and deep relationship and feeling less alone. At least I'm sure the dog will love me no matter what. Yeah, I guess dogs are good for that. Dogs are good for that. Easy money 21. Ciao from Italy. Ciao. Okay. Yeah. Italian women. I've got an Italian girlfriend at the moment. And I always like Mediterranean or Latin women quite a lot, or black as well. I mean, I'm not going to make a big thing about it. But, yeah. Can't find a girl. I mean, yeah. When you say, you know, if I'm going to give you a little bit of general feedback, when you say, I can't find a sane girl to have a real and deep relationship with, you know, I had a similar attitude. I'm not saying you're the same at all, but I had a similar attitude when I was starting to do workshops, and I started to do these kind of sexual encounter groups, which are fucking intense. You know, you have these little mini dates with people in the group, and then you give each other feedback about how it is. So you'd meet this woman, be with her for half an hour doing, you know, just hanging out or maybe being something more intimate, and then you give each other feedback, and it's grueling as fuck. But I tell you, you know, you know, the problems aren't always on the outside, is what I learned, you know. And the problem with putting the problem, like saying it's woman's problem, you know, it's woman's fault, I can't find a decent woman to be with, it's their fault, you know. There's two problems with that. One, you might be overlooking something inside of you that maybe easily you could change. Two, when you make the point of change on the outside, you make yourself a bit of a victim. It's not good for you emotionally. So, you know, I don't know you, Easy Money 21, and you seem like a pretty nice guy and humorous too. But I also would recommend, you know, check out the possibility that there's something going on with you. Ask women for feedback, maybe. You know, I mean, it's grueling, man. When you start to ask women for feedback about sexuality and appearance, it's grueling. It's tough. And it can be that like someone's taking a sledgehammer to your ego. But in the long run, it's worth it. It's worth it. So I don't know if that fits with you. But if it does, I hope it's been useful. But, you know, when I started to do encounter therapy, which is basically therapy where people reveal their judgments about you and you put your judgments about them out, you know, I mean, it's fucking grueling. But, I mean, God, do you change quick. God, do you change quick. It's kind of gone out of fashion a lot, come from the States originally. But maybe it'll come back sometime, you know. Yeah, problems are more in the mind. I'm doing bioenergetics, but I'm still following your videos and also receive treatment, but my problems are more... Yeah, well, you know, I mean, just look for a way forward. The most natural way forward is to get feedback from women, you know, in workshops, or women that you trust, to take the plunge and start to ask them, you know. Sometimes people, if you're in the alternative New Age scene, it's hard for them to give any form of critical feedback because they just want everything to be nice. But that's not so useful when you want useful, meaningful feedback. But, you know, there's a lot of basic stuff often that we can do that can create change. And like I say, it does take a certain level of courage, or in my case, desperation, basically. But I got to a point where I thought, I don't care what it is, I'm going to fucking do it. and, you know... But I think it's worth it. So check that out if there's any kind of workshops around Italy. You know, you can look at a place called Osho Miasto is running workshops. Maybe they do some sexuality stuff. I know that's a good centre. BB, how does it feel to have a receding hairline, looking in the mirror every day, wishing you had a good hair? I mean, it's like anything, you get used to it at some point. You know, my hair's been merrily receding for about the last 10, 15 years. Yeah, look, it's getting pretty thin up there. And of course, there's a part where you think, oh, wish it would come back again. But I don't think even if I did bioenergetics 24 hours a day, your hair's going to come back. You never know. You never know. At some point, you just get used to it. And I'm not so bothered by it these days, to be honest. You know, I've kind of been through, I don't know, you just kind of see it, it's going. At some point, it's like mindfulness. It's like acceptance, you know. At some point, if there's nothing you can do to change something, you just have to accept it. Something you can do is just stare at it until you get, you know, you just accept it somewhere. I haven't had to do that, but you know, it recedes. Yeah. I don't know. What can you do? You know. I know guys, it starts receding in their 20s and 30s, you know, but I don't think it matters so much. You know, it's also to look what is tied up with your hairline. Some people, for their belief, maybe, you know, you never get a sexual partner unless you look 25 or something like that. You know, that's not a useful belief to have if you're 50, you know. So you've got to look what's going on with that and try to uproot it a bit. And that's where the bioenergetics can help in changing your attitude and getting yourself more positive. You know, social therapy, like we were just discussing, you know, can get your attitude changed a lot, you know. And it's mostly a guy thing, of course, receding hairline. And if you talk to women, you know, I don't think they're so bothered about the hairline and stuff. Sure, there's classical types of guys they find really hot and are attracted to, you know, and you may not be in that category, but it doesn't mean you can't have a great time sexually or find great relationships. And he took his life because he went bored. Fuck. Depression mixed in with that is very bad. Well, Jesus, that's really extreme, yeah. I mean, I guess in my mind, I sort of think, well, he must have had other stuff going on as well. But, you know, it's good to come to terms with your age. I had a fucking big trip when I was 49, actually, because suddenly the spectre of being 50 emerged in my mind, and it was like, what the fuck have I done with my life? And I'd done a bit of therapy, and it inspired me somewhere. I just thought, fuck, I'm going to do a load more, you know? I got to do it 7 years ago, and I don't regret that at all. So it was a wake-up call. But then I got somewhere, you know, you just drop your whole trip with age. I just dropped it a bit, you know. If I'm having a good time, why am I going to sit around getting depressed about my age? I mean, what's the point in that? Fuck that, you know. Anyway, hats off to you both. Keep being positive. Thank you, man. I also, you know, with being positive as well, it's good, but I also kind of slowly over time, I get more relaxed with neutrality, or I start to really appreciate neutrality. You know, not needing to be positive, not needing to avoid negativity, you know. That's something I've noticed in the last year or two in my life. I'm kind of more okay with neutrality, you know. Some people I see, they're very much on this positive, negative aspect. It's a bit bipolar. Things are either great or they're shit, you know, and somewhere neutrality is pretty cool, you know. It's not something you can market, neutrality, you know, but like somewhere this kind of neutrality and being okay. It's a bit of mindfulness presence, you know. Personally, the fragmentation of the body is very habitual, and so the exercises can be done by only 70% of the body that has needed particular work to fix. I don't fully understand, Sasha, but feel free to explain more. I can't quite follow. Right now. Fragmentation of the body is very habitual. Yeah, but I mean, it is habitual. I mean, you go and do workshops, and I come out feeling really open and blissed out, and then pretty soon my mind is going back to habitual patterns of behaviour, and my body's locking up. You know, it's just an ongoing battle. Is not the greatest word to use, but it's an ongoing awareness exercise. What's important for me? Do I want to stay open, or do I want to get things done in a kind of manic fashion? You know, and it has to be the first. I've been in therapy for almost 2 years because of bad emotional trauma growing up, so I'm still on the journey to feel better, and just thought a girlfriend would help me get a lot of healing. What do you reckon? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. I was absolutely fucked up when I started to do therapy at the age of about 39, you know, and my core reasoning for doing therapy was I want to get a girlfriend. I hadn't had one for about the best part of a decade, I think. Yeah. And certainly 8 years or so, and I was drinking tons, using casual substances. I was involved in crime and dodginess and all sorts of things, and my life was a fucking mess, hanging out with guys, getting wasted all the time. And I thought I need a girlfriend, and that motivated me to do humanity therapy, which is the most intense thing I could find at the time, and probably still is. You know, the Osho scene is good, man. It's still thriving a bit in Italy. There's still centres going. And it's very good for personality stuff around coming out of yourself and healing sexuality. You know, it's very, very good around that scene. Definitely, you know. So, you know, I think it's a very good idea to try and to just focus on something in therapy. Like, I want to get a girlfriend. Okay, that's a tangible kind of value that you can have, that you can use as a focus for your own mind. You can even say it to yourself in the mirror or every morning. You know, I want to get a girlfriend. Voglio un compagno, or whatever, una compagna, whatever it is, you know, and to keep saying it to yourself, somewhere the stuff that's in the way starts to come up. You know, you can use this stuff. And that helps the therapy to be more efficient. I know the most part has to come from within me, but I mean, I need someone who cares about me and affection. I don't have sexual problems, you know. Yeah, that's it. Finding someone who cares about you, you know. That's great. And I'm sure, man, if you work at it, it's going to happen. You know, that's the truth about everything. We go through certain levels of despair and whatever and negativity, but if you keep going, you know, you don't even need to read books. The best thing I ever heard was the Nike logo. Just do it. You know, somewhere it overrides too much mental thinking and blah, blah. And, you know, when I started to do group work, I was one of the older people in the group, and I was by no means in the league. I used to have a league table of how good looking people were, and I was usually in the relegation zone in groups as far as I was concerned. And I thought, but what I had, you see, so my self-image was, I figured, was right down in the relegation zone. But I knew I wanted to fucking change, and I knew I'd have to go through a load of shit. And over the years, other people that I'd kind of been around dropped out of trainings or dropped out, and I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to keep going. And progressively, I got all the stuff I wanted. You know, I got all the stuff I wanted. So it doesn't really matter about your self-image where you're starting from. It's like, can you commit to something? And that, you know, those are muscles you can kind of build up in your gut somewhere, you know, or even if it's developing a willpower through exercises or whatever, to commit to something so that you can keep going. Because in any therapeutic journey, there's going to be bits when you just want to bail. You just want to get the fuck out, you know, and you're going to have back doors in your mind, that little, you know, mental strategies that tell you, you know, you don't need to do this right now. It's not what I need right now. It's a classic thing you used to hear in the group room. Favourite avoidance strategy of New Agers. It's not what I need right now, this workshop, even though I paid for it to come on it, but it's not what I need right now, so I'm going to leave. And, you know, when you get used to not buying your own bullshit, first of all, recognising your own bullshit, then not buying your own bullshit, and then basically stuff can really change. You can take yourself on and you can get what you want, man. You can get what you want, really. Yeah, keep going. Less mental blah blah. Great, Devaraj, you're super cool dude. Thank you, Easy Money. Grazie. Thank you. I hope it happens for you, man. I tell you, you have no. You know, the therapist I learned the most from was a very short guy called Varesh. You know, and nothing wrong with him. It was no. He had loads of girlfriends. You know, because he just kept working with therapy. You know, he was by no means a classically good-looking guy. You don't need half this stuff we convince ourselves that the media bombards us with to sell us things, but we need, it's a lot of bollocks. You know, it's a lot of bollocks. You know, you can absolutely create change in your life, and the main thing that creates change is the capacity to commit. That's it. And to not buy, to recognise and not buy when your mind is trying to avoid something. You know? So those are the two core things, you know. It's not what you look like. It's not how much shit you've been through in your life, whether you've been traumatized, you know, left, right and center. That's not the most significant thing. You know, so remember that, you know. It's not about that you got a great self-image and that you haven't had 4 tons of trauma. You know, the trauma pulls you deeper. You know, it pulled me very deep into myself because I wanted to become socially functional. I wanted to be able to get a girlfriend, have better friendships, not reliant on drugs and alcohol, and you know, have a nicer role in life rather than being some kind of dodgy fucking criminal. You know, not as crime's okay in some ways. You know, we learn a lot from crime, but you know, those are what I wanted to do, those things, and because I'd had so much trauma, I had to be willing to go in deep to get socially functional. Some guy who hasn't been so traumatized or had such a bad childhood, you know, if I was like that, I'd probably be dying of cancer and have 2.4 kids living in some, hideous semi in bloody Guildford or somewhere, it's like, I was very lucky that a lot of traumatic shit happened to me, and at some point I got motivated to want to change. I had no hotshot on any level at all, when I was younger, none at all. Can you repeat the two most important things? Sorry, I missed that. You speak very fast. Sorry, yeah. Apologies. The two most important things are to keep going. When you know somewhere that you're in the right therapy, keep going with it. And the second most important thing is to not buy too much of your mental bullshit. Get used to the kind of things your mind says when it wants to escape. Quando la mente vuole scappare, come si dice, you say that they're like little strategies, they're scripts, narrative per scappare. First of all, riconoscere, la narrativo di scappare. My Italian is not very good. Recognize the escape narrative, and second thing, okay, I'm trying to escape, I'm going to come back and feel. Come back and breathe and feel. Develop your willpower. If your willpower is weak and you easily get distracted, sia facile distractare. If it's easy to get distracted, do something to develop your willpower a bit, where you have to stick at something. So you develop pride, you develop self-respect. You can say, I'm going to do this bioenergetic exercise, I'm going to do it for 10 minutes, and that's how it is. And you just do it. And that way, for those 10 minutes, you start to develop self-respect and pride. In many ways, these are the first things for a lot of people to develop before they even get into working on the heavier stuff. Because when you work on the heavier stuff, you need those values, to keep going. And ideally you need some friends and stuff like that, and a safe environment to do it. But, with the self-respect and the willpower, you can do it. Hopefully that's given you information. It's that's a lot of what I'm seeing it comes down to, because when of course a lot of people who follow me on YouTube, they're doing stuff at home, and they don't have a peer group around them saying, giving them feedback or saying, hey man, pulling them up, hey man, you missed the fucking class, what's going on with you? Because that peer group pressure is a very powerful force, for all of us guys, also very powerful. The other guys are saying, hey man, you're backing down on yourself, you think, fuck, even the thought that they're going to do that pulls you back in the group room. So I'm looking a bit at ways, how can we, create this online? I'm looking at the idea of an online training academy. A friend of mine is trying to start thinking about doing a bioenergetics Facebook group. Tiago, hey Devaraj, hey Tiago, how are you? I'm doing mostly good, man, thank you. And well, I've started doing some gut bio workouts, but my breathing apparently only goes so far around the solar plexus stomach. Can't seem to reach down into my gut. Just keep trying to practice it. Something I've noticed, because I've only been teaching this for a few months, and so I'm still learning about it myself. If you're doing this gut workout, you're in the first wave of people doing this kind of thing. It's not unique to me, but in this kind of approach, something to be aware of. Often I've noticed people get a lot of despair or low-level despair when they start to work at the gut level, and the narrative they often say is like, there's no point. It's not working. Go on and do something else. No point. So if you get those kind of thoughts, I don't know if you do, but if you get those kind of thoughts, then okay, keep going with it. Keep going with it, because something probably is starting to happen, and it just needs to keep a little bit of perseverance. So if that's happening, be aware of that. And also if really nothing's happening, work with other things as well. Work with other things. But I find that the gut thing eventually can get there, and it can be a long fucking journey. There's a lot of guys people with blocks around here, around the midriff, around the solar plexus. It's very common, but I find over time it can work. It can work. So far, that's what I found so far. And maybe in 6 months I've got a different opinion or something, because it's all a bit new for me, the gut work. Bell, great live session, man. Gold nuggets of info, informative and comforting. Thank you, man. Thank you. Bailey Glazer. Social support is so important. Dug into some difficult stuff without it, thinking I could go alone. Now I'm all screwed up. Yeah, I think you contacted me quite a bit, Bailey. I'm sorry to hear that, man. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, it is difficult to do it without, proper support. But I'm just looking what if something can be done with an online community, because it is hard to find support. You can look for Osho people around, but it's quite a while that he was it's nearly 30 years ago since he left, and the followers are getting a lot older now, but there are young people about. Of course, a lot of people don't have so much cash. Feel free to message me on Facebook or something. If I can help with anything, I can try. I hope this all screwed up is not too long term for you, man. Not too long term for you. Easy money. Sorry to bother you, man, but I try to find help wherever I can. You're not bothering me, man. You're not bothering me. It's good to ask questions, because those questions are probably useful for other people, This live stream, I think after, I got to finish it soon because I'm up to my hour. I'm going to finish it soon. I'm going to go and get a little bit of food. But, that goes on to YouTube and other people watch it, or they just like to listen to it in the background. And maybe your question really, really helps someone. So, don't put yourself down like that, man. Ask questions. It's cool. If you're really asking too much, I'll say something. You definitely haven't got anywhere near that, man. It's cool to ask questions, and it's great to do it on a public forum. Thanks, Devaraj. I'll just keep going, exploring. Cheers. Cool, man. I'm going to say over and out now, and all of that stuff. And I think I've got to push. I'm not sure. But keep with it. Stick with it. Develop your willpower. Keep going, and do look if you can get some support. Sometimes for guys, it's hard to reach out for support. I fucking hated it. I had to get really desperate before I'd do it. But, we can do it. We can do it. Okay. Bye for now. I'm going to do another one of these, hopefully down in Brighton on Saturday at 6 p.m. UK time. That's the next one. Cheers. Over and out.